VGC, Video Game Championships. On the surface, it's a lot of fun. Pikachu's running about, Sneasler sipping tea, and Amoonguss doing ballet. Today, we'll be ripping through the history of the changes in Pokémon. What broke the game, what fixed it, and why it matters for the metagame today.
Chapter 1. Why Generation 5 was so broken.
Generation 5, Pokémon Black and White. Maybe the wildest competitive era ever. Here's the blunt truth. Everything that could be exploited was. If you set weather, drizzle, sandstream, drought, snow warning, it basically stayed active until someone else changed it, or there was a victor. These weathers stayed on the field for the entire game. If you had, for example, hail or sand at the end of every single turn, all Pokemon take 1/16 of their health, which means in 16 turns, they go down. And the fact that this could break focus sashes, multi-scales, so on and so forth, it meant that you had to prepare for them. Now, let's take a look at gems. So gems give the exact same damage boost as, say, Choice Band and Choice Specs. A 50% multiplier, but only for one attack. Why is this important? Well, I'm glad you asked. You probably didn't ask, but I'll tell you anyways. So, with Choice Band and Choice Specs, it gives you a 50% damage boost for all of your moves. Choice Band for physical, Choice Specs for special. The one drawback though is that once you click a move, you are locked in it for the rest of the game unless you either get KO'd, have your item knocked off, or you switch out. So, why does this matter? Say if you have a gem, let's say you're a Latios with a Dragon Gem, and you click Draco Meteor. Now you get to completely annihilate one Pokemon, and then you could switch moves. You do not need to have to switch out, because that way you lose your pressure. So you get to have a one-time nuke and have the ability to quick protect or switch to another offensive move, and that was terrifying. Let's take a look at the move Swagger now. It's a 90% accurate move, and it's a literal coin flip. Whether you attack or you smack yourself in the face instead of attacking your opponent's Pokemon. The fact that many Pokemon, including prankster Pokemon such as Landorus, could spam this to every single Pokemon on the opponent's team meant that they had a coin flip literally every time they wanted to hit. Let's get to the worst one, Sleep. Sleep was one of the nastiest mechanics. When it comes to the sleep status in Pokemon, it's tracked with a counter whenever that Pokemon is set to sleep. Think of it as X turns until wake up. The first time you try to attack is a 100% chance you cannot move. The second time you have a 33% chance to move. Then the third time is a 50% chance. Then finally, after 3 turns of sleep, you are guaranteed to wake up. What makes this mechanic so deadly is that as of now, you can either stall out your sleep turns or you could switch out into a Pokemon that can attack to keep you in the driving seat with momentum. However, Generation 5, our wonderful, beautiful Generation 5, if you switch out, your sleep timer resets, which means if you were on your last turn of sleep, now you have to do it all over again. This was the generation that sleep was abused to its maximum potential, with teams such as Liepard, Breloom, for example, or just Amoonguss in general. If you didn't have a Lumberry on your team to essentially cure you of any status once per game, you were cooked. Cooked harder than a Salisbury steak on football night. We're not done talking about Generation 5 yet. Steel types had a significant advantage compared to other formats. So, Steel types, Heatran, Metagross, Scizor. They shrug off huge portions of the type chart, and without dedicated answers, teams had to be built around cracking them wide open. However, they resisted Dark and Ghost type attacks. How is that possible? Why is that possible? I don't understand. That literally makes no freaking sense. What made this important to have Steel types were that Dragon types were untouchable. They were only weak to themselves at the time, as Fairy types weren't a thing yet. If you weren't prepared, Dragon Gem boosted, Draco Meteor, were instant Pokemon deletions. Latios, like Dragon, Salamence, all could steamroll with terrifying consistency. This is such a beautiful game. It's an amazing game. Let's see what Generation 6 has to say about that.
Hi everyone, you have successfully reached a checkpoint for you to save your progress. If you're enjoying the video, please consider clicking the like button and subscribing to our channel. It only takes a couple of seconds, but it's a huge way to help us continue growing, and we'd really appreciate it. If you have any questions or would simply like to chat with us, we invite you to meet us in the comment section of this video. And with that being said, let's get back to it. Chapter 2: How Generation 6 Saved Pokémon.
Generation 6, Pokemon X and Y, came in like a balance bomb. Given that Game Freak actually nerfed things, the competitive scene finally had breathing room. First, weather was now 5 turns instead of permanent. We finally gained the ability to naturally manage weather now. Steel types now didn't resist dark or ghost types. In regards to my favorite status condition, sleep, Generation 6 was the generation where it remembers the countdown for sleep, even if you switch the sleeping Pokemon out. Gems were removed from widespread play with the exception of Normal Gem. Normal Gem was also nerfed, only boosting normal attacks by 30% instead of the old 50% Gem spike. That removed the era of effortless one-turn nukes while leaving behind a tiny flash of the old mechanic for normal moves. My favorite change, however, is that Pokemon types could not be status by their adjacent status moves. Will-O-Wisp cannot burn fire types anymore. Thunderwave could not paralyze electric types anymore. Grass-type Pokemon were now immune to Spore and Rage Powder. My favorite second change with this generation was that Pikachu received a buff. Now, its base defense of 30 is bumped to 40, and its special defense from 40 to 50. So while Pikachu went from getting one-shot by literally everything in the past, it is still getting one-shot by literally everything now. Now, the thing I don't understand with this is that if you're gonna buff Pikachu, why not just give it good stats? Like Ash's Pikachu, for example, in the show, it is so good. It could live like 3 Draco Meteors, but in the game, if you use Quick Attack, it goes down. Like, what is this buff supposed to do? Who knows? Maybe it'll get buffed next generation.
Chapter 3: Generation 7: A seismic shift to competitive play.
Now, Generation 7, Pokemon Sun and Moon added a whole new battlefield layer, terrains, and the Tapus weaponized it. They also introduced a weird Fire-Dark starter Pokemon, but I don't think it'll have any relevance. So there were 4 types of terrain introduced. Electric Terrain, it prevents grounded Pokemon from being put to sleep and boosted every single electric attack by 50%. Grassy Terrain, heals grounded Pokemon a little each turn while powering grass moves by 50%. It also enables priority for the move Grassy Glide when terrain is active. Psychic Terrain prevents priority moves from hitting grounded Pokemon and boosts psychic moves by 50%. It also supercharges the move Expanding Force so it can hit both opponents in doubles or VGC. Now for my favorite, Misty Terrain. It negates status condition on grounded Pokemon, and it halves dragon moves, which is really good. It's important to keep in mind that with all terrains, they only affect Pokemon that are grounded, so Pokemon with the ability Levitate or Flying types are not affected by terrain. This means, for example, that you could fake out Flying type Pokemon in Psychic Terrain. Whenever a Tapu hit the field, the entire field is forced to play by these rules for 5 turns. Now, let's talk about some very important interactions with these terrains. Expanding Force is a Psychic type move that gets a very special interaction in Psychic Terrain. When it is used in Psychic Terrain, it becomes much stronger and hits both opponents. This makes it a devastating area breaker when the battlefield is controlled by Psychic Terrain. It punishes teams that are not prepared for a terrain synchronized nuke. Use Expanding Force well, and you will brutalize entire teams in one turn. Rising Voltage in Electric Terrain gains a massive boost. Its base power doubles in Electric Terrain. That means setting Electric Terrain and then following up with a Rising Voltage gives huge single target damage spikes, especially against grounded threats. It's a textbook terrain setter followed by a big follow-up play. Fun fact, for example, a Raging Bolt in Electric Terrain using Rising Voltage one-shots Terra Fairy Miraidon, which is kind of insane. Now for Generation 7, last but not least, my favorite. Ash's Pikachu received a buff. It can now wear a regional hat. Kanto, Hoenn, Sinnoh, Johto. You could stylish your Pikachu however you want. Unfortunately, it still gets one-shot by every move. There was also one minor buff in the format. So we had that Fire Dark Pokemon, the starter Pokemon, and it gained a hidden ability, Intimidate, but I don't think it will make much of a difference.
Chapter 4, Generation 8, an expansion to Tactical Death.
Generation 8, the Galar region, Pokemon Sword and Shield. Sword and Shield brought a new layer of tempo, Dynamax, plus a fundamental change to how speed interactions work. Speed used to be as simple, who has the higher speed stat moves first. For example, in Generation 6 with Mega Evolutions, if you had a Pokemon that could Mega Evolve and boost its speed stat, it wouldn't gain that speed stat change until the turn afterwards. If you use Tailwind, you wouldn't get the immediate speed boost until the following turn. This changes in Generation 8, introducing dynamic mid-turn speed recalculation. Speed changes that happen during the turn immediately take effect. For example, if you were to use the move Electro Web or Icy Wind to lower your opponent's speed, now your Pokemon could be immediately faster and retaliate with the speed attack. Many players abuse this with Max Airstream or even G-Max Weakness Policy Colossal, which by nature is very slow, but if it gets hit with a super effective attack, its speed is maximized, and now you can outspeed the rest of your opponent's team in one turn. Unfortunately, Pikachu didn't get a buff, but that Fire Dark type starter I mentioned prior did. It now learns Parting Shot.
Chapter 5, Generation 9. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Generation 9, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. There were some minor changes with the balance patches. For one, Snow replaces Hail. Snow no longer inflicts chip damage on non-ice types every turn like Hail used to. Instead, Snow buffs ice-type Pokemon's defense the way Sandstorm buffs rock-type Pokemon's special defense. That change turns Snow from universal chip damage into a defensive niche that helps ice teams survive and trade better. It also lasts 5 turns, similar to the other weather mechanics now. For terrain, we now have Ice Spinner. This is an ice-type attack that removes any active terrain the second it hits the Pokemon. This makes Ice Spinner a clutch answer whenever your opponent weaponizes their terrain and you need it gone now. They had also removed a lot of Pokemon from the Pokedex, such as my queen Tapu Fini. Rest in peace, Tapu Fini. You, the perfect answer to Incineroar and Sleep, as well as dragons. My queen, I hope to see you in Generation 10. Pikachu did not get a buff either. It was truly a sad day. Another Pokemon did get a buff, Incineroar, the fire-type starter from Generation 7. Now, it has Helping Hand, which boosts your partner's attack by 50% and Knock Off, a dark-type stab move that removes your opponent's item. It seems like every freaking generation they buffed this thing. Within these last few generations, the game has become much more balanced and favorable for newer players. And while Pikachu is still very hilariously squishy, we still love him anyways. Thanks for watching. If you love this deep dive, please join our communities. The link's in the description. Everybody on the team has put in a lot of work these last few months just to make sure that we're able to create the best content for our viewers. We also have Coffee and Patreon as well if you are interested. Well, that's it from me. I'll see you next time. Have a good one.